Hey everybody,
Hello.
we are back. Thanks for joining us. Today we're super excited that we were able to pick up a complete set again, all four World Championship decks from the year 2017 in the Pokemon trading card game. So we've never opened these decks. I haven't really looked through them much, so we're gonna open them up, look at the cards, try to figure out what they're trying to do, and sleeve them up. We probably won't have time to play tonight. Oh, Kyle, I'm so sorry. Thank you. Thank you for waiting for us.
We're here.
We appreciate your patience. The little one has been giving us a bit of a tough time as far as sleeping goes lately, so.
I feel like we say just about every time we stream, but
Well, yes.
it's true.
He goes through spurts, so we're hoping that tonight will be a good night.
Yes.
All right.
We are.
So, which one do you want to open first?
I don't know. Maybe we can just start with this one?
Okay.
I don't know.
So we'll start with Ice Path for the Win by Zachary Bokhari. I will probably butcher some names. So the 2017 World Championships, looks like it was held in Anaheim, California. Alright, let's look at our little booklet here. It's very tropical. You know, looking at this design, I would have thought that it was like in Hawaii or something.
Yeah.
But I think the 2010 World Championships were in Hawaii, if I recall correctly. Okay, so more than 900 players from 46 countries gathered at the Anaheim Convention Center for 3 days of fiery competition.
Woohoo. There's.
Okay, so. Oh, that's interesting. The junior finals champion did not get a deck made, probably because it was the same. It was probably one of the same archetypes as later. We can look in the book. But Kabu Fukase is one of the decks. Yes, nice little pin. Diego Casaraga is the Masters champion. So that is Infinite Force, I think. Yep. Zachary Bokhari, which is this one, was the seniors champion. And then, who's the other one? Oh, Naoto Suzuki, the Masters runner-up.
Okay.
So those are the four World Champ decks. Okay, so Tobias Stromdahl, the junior champion, was playing Gardevoir, which is the same as Infinite Force.
Okay.
Or at least very similar. So they tend not to do the same archetype twice when they make the World Champ decks.
Right, because they want a
They
variety.
want variety. Right. Yeah, I'm curious to see. Okay, so they had video game championships, and this year it was Sun and Moon. See, now that would have been perfect to put in Hawaii.
Right.
Which is why they should have the upcoming World Championships in Spain, right? Not that I want them to be like
In Columbus.
in Indianapolis. They're not going to be in Columbus.
Obviously, I know that.
People are already mad enough about having to go to Columbus once a year.
I know.
They had Pokken this year. Or wait, yes.
Now, what is
16 players. That was the fighting game.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I feel like we went over that last time, too. Right, that's one that we never really...
I think last year was the last year ever for Pokken.
Okay.
At the World Championship level. Okay. Well, cool. These booklets are always fun to have.
Yes.
And now I will just set it aside along with the pin. Alright, so you're busy sleeving. Let's start taking a look at what we have here. Got some aqua patches. It's always a fun way to energy accelerate. So just like Dark Patch or Metal Saucer, you can attach a basic, well, it technically doesn't say basic, but you can attach a water energy card from your discard pile to one of your benched water Pokemon. Only 3 versus Seeker? We'll see if there's another one in there somewhere.
Don't feel like there has been so far, but I haven't gone through this stack at all.
Or Ultra Ball. I wonder how this was stored. The cards are kind of warped, but at least if they're all warped evenly, that's the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
They all have the same back. 4 Ultra Ball, pretty classic. Okay, 3 Rough Seas. So once during each player's turn, that player may heal 30 damage from each of his or her water and lightning Pokemon. There is actually at least one lightning Pokemon in here. We'll go over the Pokemon in a minute.
Oops.
But there's the stadiums. Obviously, Versus Seeker is an incredibly powerful item. Basically lets you copy the effect of a supporter card from your discard pile. You technically put it into your hand, but usually you play Versus Seeker to then immediately play the supporter.
Right.
You don't usually play Versus Seeker to put it into your hand and then wait.
Yeah.
Okay, Professor Sycamore, discard draw 7, just like Professor's Research now. Ultra Ball is obviously discard any 2 cards in order to search your deck for any Pokemon. That's always a really powerful effect, and a lot of decks, when you have cards like Aqua Patch or Melanie now, or even you could argue Versus Seeker, you've got discard synergy, where getting things into the discard pile is actually useful for you. Professor Kukui, a lot of decks from this time I think mostly just played 1 copy of this, so it only lets you draw 2 cards, but then your Pokemon's attacks do 20 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So that can be really important to help you get that little bit of extra to get the knockout.
Right.
And once you use it or discard it, you can then copy it later with Versus Seeker if you need to. Bridget, search your deck for 1 basic Pokemon EX or 3 basic Pokemon not EX. Interestingly, and put them directly onto the bench. So that's important because it wouldn't work for something like Tapu Lele, but you could actually pull Tapu Lele because it is a basic and it is not an EX. So I learned that playing in the NAIC 2017 tournament, that you can pull basic Pokemon GX with Bridget because of the way that it's worded.
Right.
Again, it wasn't until just recently with Sword and Shield that we developed the terminology rule box Pokemon. Although that has been helpful for us talking, because we kind of always had that understanding of a distinction there. Floatstone is a super powerful tool that gives your Pokemon ×0 on its retreat cost. Field Blower lets you get rid of 2 in any combination of tools or stadium cards in play. And an interesting thing I also learned that I didn't really realize before playing in that 2017 tournament was that Bridget's price went from $10 to $5 when Lele got revealed. That's interesting because you can't use Wonder Tag if you pull Lele with Bridget, right? Because Bridget makes you put it directly onto the bench, so then you're not playing it from your hand.
I mean, Energy Drive isn't a bad attack if you had to use it.
That's something that Kyle has reminded me of time and time again, is that while Tapu Lele is really used as a support Pokemon, it's also very splashable as an attacker because of that double colorless cost.
Right.
And Energy Drive, do you mind going ahead and reading it?
So its attack is Energy Drive. It does 20 times damage. This attack does 20 damage times the amount of energy attached to both active Pokemon. This damage isn't affected by weakness or resistance. So.
Nice. Oh, I see what you're saying. People didn't buy the Bridgets to get Lele. They were saying Bridget was now much more valuable because they had a way to pull it with Tapu Lele. So, Tapu Lele the most similar Pokemon to Tapu Lele right now is Lumineon V, which is still very prevalent in a lot of decks because you just play it to the bench, you get to search your deck for any supporter card. We're going to have Glare right in this area, so that's where we'll want to put the basic energy. We've got some Choice Band that is just like Choice Belt now, plus 30 to essentially Rule Box Pokemon, Pokemon EX and Pokemon GX.
I'm trying to find.
I'm not organizing these very well.
Oh, I'm so sorry, I just bumped them.
That's okay.
You're less organized now.
Even less organized.
Grand! Now. It's okay, the baby's not sleeping. You have an excuse. There.
Alright, let's see. We've got Pokemon Center Lady. Yay! That's almost funny. Pokemon Center Lady, heal 60 damage and remove all special conditions from one of your Pokemon. Karen, each player shuffles all Pokemon in his or her discard pile into his or her deck. Okay, so this must have been very useful against Lost March, because Lost March, like actually several decks right now, potentially, Ditto Carp, United Wings, or Tatsujiri Dondozo, they're all about doing damage based on the number of Pokemon in your discard pile. So if you force your opponent to shuffle all those Pokemon back in, so Lost March, Kyle has said previously that he feels like that was the best deck, like consistently around this time period. Oh, well, it was a good deck before this, but Vespiquen also, you played that a little bit. It's one of the 2017. Well, it's mixed in with the Yanmega break deck.
Oh, okay, yeah.
From 2016.
Yeah.
There's also Vespiquen there, and it does more damage for each Pokemon in your discard pile.
Okay.
So there's always okay. Night March. Sorry,
Night March.
I said Lost March.
Yeah.
Night March. There was another one that was similar to that recently, and I'm blanking on what it was, but it's okay. It was before it was early Sword Shield.
Okay.
There was one. I know that Galarian Mr. Rhyme was one of them. Man, why am I blanking on it? It's okay. Kyle will remind me in a moment, probably. So that makes sense for Vespiquen or any other deck. Okay, we've got our N. Mad Party. Thank you. Mad Party was the one. It was, this attack does X amount of damage for each Pokemon with the Mad Party attack in your discard pile. So that's how United Wings is worded. Sometimes it's just straight up times the number of Pokemon, which there's the new Houndstone and Grievard that do damage based on the number of Psychic Pokemon in your discard pile, and that's just straight, like, for each Psychic Pokemon.
Any Psychic Pokemon. Nice.
So sometimes it's like that, a specific type, sometimes it's just straight number of Pokemon, or like United Wings is times the number of Pokemon with the United Wings attack.
Right.
Alright, there's N. That's our classic, each player shuffles their hand into their deck and draws a card for each of their remaining prizes. So it is a come from behind card, because if you're losing, you can shuffle your opponent's hand down to a smaller size than yours because you have more prizes than them. The most similar card to that right now was just printed, called Iono, and arguably Iono is better than N because Iono shuffles the hand and puts it on the bottom of the deck. So it is very difficult to redraw those same cards that were in your opponent's hand.
Yeah.
So decks like Lost Box right now using the Comfy engine, where they're constantly intentionally selecting specific cards to go into the hand and lost zoning other cards, you get to make those choices almost irrelevant because you shuffle all, or you put all those cards in the bottom of the deck.
Right.
Guzma is the version of Boss's Orders from this time period. And the interesting thing about Guzma is you both had to switch.
Yeah,
so
it was like
you had to be able to switch in an attacker. Yeah, it's like Escape Rope plus Boss. So you had to have an attacker that was ready to switch in, but then you could force your opponent to switch as well. And you got to pick. So unlike Warp Point or Double Gust, Warp Point, the old Warp Point, was the same as Escape Rope is now. Double Gust is an old card where you got to gust in your opponent's Pokemon and they got to gust in one of yours.
Okay.
Which obviously is not ideal unless all of their choices, unless all your Pokemon either have free retreat or you only have one Pokemon on the bench, or all the Pokemon on the bench are identical.
Right.
Which is essentially the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into the Pokemon.
Alright. So we already talked a little bit about Tapu Lele GX.
You didn't actually read Wonder Tag.
Oh, I didn't read Wonder Tag. I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine.
Okay, Wonder Tag. When you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench during your turn, you may search your deck for a supporter card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. Then shuffle your deck. So it has a come into play ability.
Yeah, which is, I think it's worded exactly the same way as Lumineon V is now.
Right.
And again, Lumineon V is a 1 or 2 of in a lot of decks that need to be able to get specific. So in some decks, like Lugia, it's more used early to set up.
Yeah.
But late game, you can also use it to get that boss's orders to close out the game or whatever you need.
Right. Alright, so then we have a Tapu Koko. Okay, so this one's probably just used for this attack.
Correct, because
flip.
You can see there's no
lightning energy.
Or rainbow energy.
Or anything else. And it doesn't have an ability, I guess was my other point.
Yep.
So Flying Flip. This attack does 20 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon.
Yep.
The first time I read it as for each of your opponent's Pokemon.
Oh, yeah, no.
So I totally read it wrong, and it surprised me when I read it correctly.
So again, this is another splashable attacker where it fits really well into a lot of decks because of the double one. We had double colorless energy, which we don't have right now. Due to baby Pokemon. Yeah. The babies, I think all baby Pokemon had free retreat, or certainly Cleffa did. Cleffa had free retreat. But also you could force... Well, I guess you could do the same thing with Warp Point, like force the opponent's baby Pokemon out of the active spot because of, you want to get around the baby.
Right.
And if you could if you were attacking baby Pokemon on the bench, the baby rule did not apply. The baby rule only applies when the baby Pokemon is in the active spot.
Right.
So getting them onto the bench and then attacking them is also an option.
Right.
But yeah, so Tapu Koko is very splashable, that's a term. And then the other term that exists but is not a common type of deck right now is called Spread. So this is a spread attack where you spread a lot of damage across the opponent's board.
Yeah.
There isn't a lot of that right now because you've got Pokemon with 330 HP.
Right.
And if you made this stronger, like if you made this 40, you would just be able to wipe out decks that evolve.
Right.
But if it's not strong enough to take down those decks that use only high HP Pokemon.
Right. Okay, so next we have is it Giratina or Giratina?
It's Giratina, I believe.
Okay. That's what I thought.
I hate that card. That one's only there for its ability.
Yes. Its ability is called Devour Light. Each Pokemon break has no abilities. This includes abilities of its previous evolution.
Yeah.
So that's rough.
That is primarily there for... It's probably there for more than one thing, but since I just played Greninja Break, I definitely think of it as being a Greninja Break counter primarily, because Greninja Break's big thing is using Giant Water Shuriken, which is an ability, to discard a water energy and put 6 damage counters on any of your opponent's Pokemon.
Right.
And so you can do that and do a lot of damage very quickly, but this Giratina completely negates that.
Right.
Ooh, that's an interesting one.
Now we've got Sudowoodo, and he has an ability called Roadblock. Your opponent can't have more than 4 benched Pokemon. If they have 5 or more benched Pokemon, they discard benched Pokemon until they have 4 Pokemon on the bench. If more than one effect changes the number of benched Pokemon allowed, use the smaller number. Cool.
Okay, so Kyle confirmed it is for Greninja Break,
Okay.
especially in this format.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Sudowoodo is interesting. It is essentially a unidirectional collapsed stadium
Right.
now, which is what we have now is the closest thing. And it takes up a bench spot on your side, but it only affects your opponent. So that's kind of cool.
Right.
Which, as we've seen, well, you could use that to like prevent your opponent from being able to play a Tapu Lele or something if they already have their bench full.
Right.
I imagine there's a number of uses for that.
Yeah. Alright, so then we've got Remoraid and Octillery.
Okay. That's the Abyssal Hand Octillery. Yeah. So that's what that's there for.
Yeah. So once during your turn before you attack, you may draw cards until you have 5 cards in your hand. So that's nice.
So that's essentially the same as B-Barrel now. Industrious Incisors.
Yep.
And we have that in that's a water GLC like staple because it's a very powerful draw ability.
Alright. Now we've got Alolan Vulpix, Beacon Vulpix.
Yes, Beacon Alolan Vulpix. Also very useful in Water GLC and a very good card. There were even decks that didn't run any evolutions of Alolan Vulpix that would use Beacon Vulpix because of how good Beacon is.
Right. So Beacon, it does not use an energy. Let's see if I can get this up here. You can see how that's blurred out up here at the top. That means that it does not cost any energy to use that attack.
Yep, it's a free attack.
It's a free attack. Now, like, it still, like, ends your turn and stuff, but you don't have to pay for it.
Yep, you don't have to attach any energy to the Pokemon in order to use that attack. Kyle probably knows when the very first free attack Pokemon was. It's earlier than I tend to think, but it's definitely not in... I don't think there were any in the Wizards of the Coast era. So, like, the old cards that people think about, the ones that I grew up with, the ones that we had from childhood, there are no free attacks in those.
Yeah. And then we've got Alolan Ninetails GX. So, this is generally a fun card. So it's got Ice Blade. This attack does 50 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon.
You can see how that matches well with the spread.
With the spread, yeah.
Diamond and Pearl base.
Okay. And then Blizzard Edge does 160 damage, but you have to discard 2 energy cards, or discard 2 energy from this Pokemon.
Energy.
So
that's important because you could attach this
you could discard the double colors.
Yep.
And then its GX attack is Ice Path GX. Move all damage counters from this Pokemon to your opponent's active Pokemon.
Okay.
That's awesome.
And
you can only use it once per turn, or once per game, but
it's obviously really good because the deck is named Ice Path for the win.
Right.
It is named Ice Path for the win. So Ice Path is obviously really good.
Right.
Which it's one of the reasons I was surprised to see Pokemon Center Lady in here, because you would think that you don't really want to heal per se, but I guess you always want to, of course, stay out of reach of a knockout.
Yeah.
So, and I guess this is healing too. So again, you're trying to like stay out of reach of a knockout, and in a perfect world, you'd end up with like 200 damage, and then just put that onto your opponent.
Yep.
But you could also, as long as you have like 170, you could knock out a Lele, Guzma up a Lele, Ice Path, 2 prizes right there.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's typically used early game or late game. Certainly early to mid game, you get to take a damaged Alolan Ninetails, completely heal it, and hopefully get a knockout at the same time.
Yeah.
So,
and you don't have to discard energy from it to use that. So, you could, in theory, use Blizzard Edge next turn.
Right.
to do some really heavy damage again.
Right, and if they try to retreat, you've got two different ways to attack the bench.
Yeah.
I don't know if there were any bench barrier at this time.
You want me to go ahead and start?
Yeah, let's go ahead and start cleaning this one up. So obviously, Alolan Ninetails GX is your main attacker with Tapu Koko as a backup attacker.
Yeah.
Tapu Lele if you were really desperate.
If you were super
but
desperate.
everybody else is there for support.
Yeah.
So cool. That is a fun one.
Yeah, it is.
We've got it in our nice sapphire sleeves, which I feel like matches the Alolan Ninetails GX colors very well.
Moving.
Uh-oh. He's not allowed to move.
Okay.
Mr. Mime with bench barrier. Oh yes, and the stage 1 Machoke that was both bench barrier and effects, which is really cool. Really, really cool. And you didn't even have to have energy on, like the two different effect blocking things that we have right now. One is, what are you looking for?
I was looking for the next set here.
Start with that. That is going to be blue.
This one's going to be blue?
No, it's purple. I lied.
I was like, I thought the blue one goes with the red one.
Although Gardevoir could fit in purple very well as well. But this Gardevoir is not psychic, it's fairy.
Okay. Yeah, let's put that one in blue.
Yeah, it'll be blue. So our next deck is Golisopod by Naoto Suzuki. So that will be fun. I'm really interested to see this one. Obviously, Golisopod is a really cool Pokemon from the Sun and Moon series, especially in the anime, because it was Guzma in the anime. It was one of his main Pokemon there at the end.
Alright. Let's see. Any other...
Ooh, Heavy Ball. That's cool. Where did you put the deck box?
I put it back here.
Okay, yeah. Pokemon make deck boxes big enough for sleeved cards challenge. Oh, right. This is a Garbotoxin deck. I don't know how I feel about that. Oh, hey, look, Tapu Koko.
Hey.
All right, we'll go over these things in a moment.
Yeah, I'm trying to sort out energy.
I only have one Heavy Ball. Maybe that's correct. Did you see any more on your side? I've got mostly Pokemon. Pokemon altogether.
Okay.
You're going to start sleeving? Right, because you were sleeving last time while I was going over the booklet.
Yes.
Okay, so I will talk and put some over here, and then you can sleeve, and then I will eventually take the sleeved file.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see here. Alright. Cool. Alright, so first we have Rainbow Energy. We don't have anything exactly like this right now. Rainbow Energy's been reprinted. It was first printed in the Team Rocket set, and then it's been reprinted several times since then. So it provides any type of energy while attached, but when you attach, you have to place one damage counter on that Pokemon. So we had Aurora Energy that was similar to this, that required you to discard a card from your hand in order to attach it. Of course, Regigigas and Lugia got around that. Well, Lugia Archeops got around that. So Aurora Energy was not very difficult. The one we have now is called Luminous Energy, and Luminous Energy is tricky to use because it is a rainbow energy until you have any other special energy attached to the same Pokemon, and then it becomes single colorless. So you can't use it in decks like... you can technically try to use it with Regigigas now, and that is the closest way to make Regis work. I guess you could try to do Regis with only basic energy as well, but Luminous Energy makes it easier. But then you can't attach Gift Energy, and Gift Energy is very useful in Regigigas as well. Okay, Luminous Energy is an exact redo of Multi-Energy. Okay, I'm sure we have some Multi-Energy somewhere, I just haven't played with it enough. Why didn't they just call it Multi-Energy? Why did they do this to us, Kyle? Why? But yeah, Luminous Energy and Multi-Energy are trickier to use, especially because like you can't put Luminous Energy in, well, I guess you technically could put one Luminous Energy into like a Lugia with a plan to attach it to like Radiant Charizard or something at the end of the game, but you can't attach any other. Like Archeops only pools Special Energy, so you can't put a Basic Energy in there, and Luminous Energy doesn't work with any other. They're depriving me of using my beautiful reverse hollow multi-energy in standard decks. Yes, and they're doing it on purpose, we're convinced. Okay, but Rainbow Energy is super cool. It's a really good old card. And honestly, I like to throw it into some of our older decks because, man, in the original sets, they did not do a very good job of designing attack costs logically.
No.
And certainly not with mixed type families,
no.
Of which there are not many.
But there are a few, and it makes it really rough.
But Rainbow Energy can help a lot when you have that odd, I have one Pokemon that attacks with this one type of energy. I don't really want to take up a basic energy. I don't want to put the basic energy in my deck and take up one slot only for that Pokemon. Rainbow Energy can be used with any other Pokemon, but it also gives you the potential of attacking with that one with the odd costs.
Yeah.
Okay, so I spent a lot of time talking about Rainbow Energy, but it is super cool. Alright, then we've got three double colorless. And only 3 basic grass. So as we look at these Pokemon, there must not be a very high attack cost, or they must be able to re-accelerate energy from the discard pile. So we'll find out which one it is. And then basic grass energy. Alright, I'm going to go over the trainers first, because that won't take as long. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I got it. Everybody panic! Okay. Alright, we have our staple 4 versus Seeker.
Whoops, sorry.
If I ever get really desperate, I will. Luckily, we have some versus Seeker, but it is unfortunately an expensive card. If I ever get really desperate, I'll steal them out of the World Champ decks and then put them back.
Put them back.
Ultra Ball 4. Again, not very surprising. Rescue Stretcher 2. Okay, I like Rescue Stretcher a lot. I'm running out of versus Seeker. I know, right? There was a very brief time when I was running out of basic energy. That is no longer the case.
No, not even close.
But I find myself now I'm doing that with like Nest Ball. So basically I have to choose. I usually try to keep 2 to 4 decks that are the most up to date and the most meta. Although I don't really know why, because I don't play. I guess we were just updating for NAIC, but right now I'm not playing at locals. I have a big board certification test coming up at the end of August, and maybe I'll try to get back into locals after that, because there is a place relatively close to where I work, and it does have free entry to the weekly tournaments. So we'll see. That costs time, though, as well, so we'll have to see how that goes.
Yeah.
But
see what happens.
For the decks that are not the most up-to-date meta decks, I usually have to either pick ones that are inherently good and punish them by making them use like Capturing Aroma or something like that, because I'm out of Nest Ball, or you just eventually get to the meme decks and they have meme trainers too. But Rescue Stretcher I like a lot, and it's kind of an interesting in-between of Apparently owning 70 versus Seeker isn't enough anymore. Oh, Lord have mercy. I can't even imagine, Kyle. Rescue Stretcher is a cool kind of mix between Clara and Ordinary Rod and Super Rod. So it only works for Pokemon. So unlike Ordinary Rod and Super Rod, you cannot get any energy back. But you can choose to either put one single Pokemon, any Pokemon, from your discard pile back into your hand, or shuffle 3 of any Pokemon back into your deck. So that's really useful.
Yeah, having that option,
because it's so versatile.
Yeah, having that option is super nice. Because, sometimes I just need that one Pokemon.
Yep.
And that will do it.
Win you the game. Okay, there's our Professor Sycamore. Here's our 3N. Hex Maniac. Okay, so Hex Maniac is an interesting one, and I am trying to remember the exact wording on Goop Gas Attack, but they're essentially the same. This just also goes on to specify that until the end of your opponent's next turn, each Pokemon in play, in each player's hand, and in each player's discard pile has no abilities. This includes cards that come into play. So, Goop Gas Attack doesn't really have all that extra text.
Right.
But it's essentially the same thing.
Right.
Where you play it and there are no abilities until the end of your opponent's next turn. I think Goop Gas is worded exactly the same as that otherwise. So, Hex Maniac. Here's our 2 Guzma.
Sorry.
A Bridget, and a Teammates. Teammates we did not see in the previous deck. We have seen it before.
Yep.
It's also useful in GLC. So, only if one of your Pokemon was knocked out during your opponent's last turn, you can play this and then search your deck for any 2 cards and put them into your hand.
Yeah. So that's super cool. And a couple of things that we were just going over our siblings with when we were home last was, when you get to search for any card, you don't have to reveal that to your opponent. So, you get to keep that a secret, whatever you just fooled, rather than with Great Ball, you have to show it to prove that that's the card that you fooled.
Yeah, any time you're searching for a specific type of card, you'll notice that the cards always make you reveal it to prove that you're pulling whatever it is that you're supposed to be pulling. So you can't use an Ultra Ball and then go pull a Professor's Research and put it into your hand. Well, you can, but that would be cheating. Right.
That would be cheating.
Floatstone. Okay. 4 Floatstone, and I know why. It's because this Golisopod EX or GX, it has an attack similar to Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX, where when it switches into the active spot, it does more damage or something like that. We'll read it
go
here
over it here in a few minutes.
But Floatstone.
Nice.
And there's actually, they made a single prize Golisopod in Celebrations or Pokemon Go. Oh, okay. You're right. It's also useful for the Garbodor because... Or Garbodor. Because... the anime says Garbodor. Garbodor's ability only works when it has a tool attached. So, high tool counts make sense when you want to shut off abilities. So, speaking of tools, there's 2 Choice Band. Okay, 1 Field Blower. 2 so you can use a Field Blower to get rid of your own tool, use your own abilities, and then reattach a tool.
Right.
Kind of like how Dex would play Path to the Peak, bump it with Pumpkaboo, and then play another Path to the Peak at the end of the turn.
Yeah.
Acerola. Okay, so Acerola is... There's not a card exactly like this right now. The most similar to this would be either Charon's Care or Penny, but she is put one of your Pokemon, and importantly, no restriction.
Right.
as
Just
far as the
put
type
one.
of Pokemon. But put one Pokemon that has any damage counters on it. So that's the restriction.
Okay.
And all cards attached to it into your hand.
Oh, that's nice.
So Penny is just like that, except only basics, and you don't
Right.
need damage counters, I don't believe.
I don't think
And
so.
Charon's Care is just like that. I'm trying to remember if it needs damage counters or not. I want to say it does, but I could be wrong about that. But it's only colorless Pokemon.
Oh,
So Penny is only
okay.
basics, any type. Charon's is only colorless,
Colorless.
but any stage.
Okay.
Acerola is any type, any stage, but they have to
But
have
they have
damage
to have
counters.
damage. Okay. Interesting.
And that's very useful for a number of things.
Mm-hmm.
And then Heavy Ball, search your deck for a Pokemon with a retreat cost of 3 or more. I'm going to guess this is for the Garbodor. Reveal it and put it into your hand. Shuffle your deck afterwards. Right? Garbodor has
Garbodor, I think, and Golisopod, yeah.
Oh, and
GX.
Golisopod
They
also
both
has
have
the
3.
retreat cost of 3. Alright, cool. That's interesting, because I think of Golisopod as being like a fast Pokemon.
Yeah.
Why does it have a retreat cost of 3? But we know that the TCG is not always consistent when it comes to that. But yeah, so this is the original Heavy Ball, and this is why I actually get annoyed when people call Hisuian Heavy Ball Heavy Ball. They just call it Heavy Ball, because the two effects are completely different. Like, there is a Heavy Ball, and it's not... Okay, Charon... Okay, alright,
With
alright.
damage, okay.
Charon is just like Acerola, but only colorless. Alright, that's what I was thinking.
All right.
Penny does not require damage counters, I believe, but it is any basic of any type, but only basics.
Right.
Alright, I'm gonna
Yeah.
start doing this.
Okay. So, we've got Tapu Koko again with its flying flip attack.
Mm-hmm.
So nothing new there. We've got 2 Tapu Lele GX with the Wonder Tag ability and the Energy Drive attack. So same, right? It's the same card as last time?
Yep, same
Okay.
same one.
Right,
You're gonna
that's what
see
I thought.
Tapu Lele probably in
That's-
all of these. Kind of like
That's what I
how
thought. I
the
just wanted to make
2019
sure.
decks, the big one there was the Dedenne GX for
Right.
Day
Yeah,
Change.
Day Change, yeah.
And interestingly, I don't know if you would ever do it, but in this deck you could, because you have the
With the
rainbow energy,
rainbow.
you could potentially use Tapu Cure GX.
Yeah,
and in
heal
theory, you could attack with Tapu Koko too, but it would take
Mhm,
you
it would
3
take 2.
attachments.
Yeah, it'd be a lot.
So you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you theoretically have that option because of the rainbow energy.
Right. Alright, so
What does Tapu Cure GX do,
Okay.
actually?
heal all damage from 2 of your benched Pokemon.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, I mean that could be extremely useful. Alright, so then we've got Trubbish, who's not overly exciting here. It's got 1 attack that does 10 damage. Let's see. Flip a coin. If heads, discard an energy card attached to your opponent's active Pokemon.
That is always a fun
Which-
effect when it hits.
When it hits, yeah. Alright, so then we have just a regular Garbodor. This is the Trashalanche one.
Yeah, and that's what it's used for, is
Okay,
trash.
that's what I thought.
So that's what the rainbow energy is for.
Right. Because it requires us a psychic energy, sorry. This attack does 20 damage for each item card in your opponent's discard pile.
Yeah.
Oh.
So that's something people have talked about that's kind of annoying. Now, playing against Garbage. So one, you'll notice that there are not that many item cards,
Right, we've got
relatively
4,
speaking.
6, 7, 8.
And by current rules, tools, now that would not have applied to this, but
Right.
now tools aren't even considered item cards. So it'd be interesting to see if they reprinted a Trashalanche type attack, how would they word it?
Right.
Kyle pointed out that Metagross GX did intentionally plan to, or have the option to use Tapu Cure.
Okay,
um,
nice. Nice.
But at this time, tools were items, but still you'll overall see that there's a relatively small item count
Yeah.
because you had to deal with Trashalanche. So
Right.
unlike what decks do now, where we just pitch items, left and right, we're just
Right.
like discarding everything.
Yeah.
We're just like Nest
Items,
Balls
items,
flying,
items.
Ultra Balls flying. We're just like items, items, items everywhere. In this format, because of Trashlands, you had to think about that with your deck building, and it slowed the game down. Because if you put, and actually one of the reasons, I mean, I probably would have lost the game anyway, but I had a game that started very rough in the 2017 NAIC tournament because just to avoid a donk, I had to research my opening hand with several items in it that weren't useful at the moment. I don't remember what all it was. Probably like a Versus Seeker. Well, yeah, I don't think you were watching at that point. It's probably like my Field Blower and my Versus Seeker. So anyway, I started off with like 3 or 4 items in the discard pile. So already Trashlands was doing 60, 80 damage. And then if you do anything else after that for every Versus Seeker, eventually I got to the point where I was just like, well, now I'm just going to play items because you're already at the point where you can one-shot
anything.
My Greninja Break. So Garbotoxin, which you're about to read, and this is 20 times the number of items.
Yeah, that's 20 times
in your opponent's discard pile.
Yes.
So it again, like you can't directly control that, but it forces them to build their decks differently and slow down what they're doing and think about what they're doing. Okay, so then
Alright, so then we have another Garbotor that has Garbotoxin. If this Pokemon has a Pokemon tool card attached to it, each Pokemon in play in each player's hand and in each player's discard pile has no abilities except for Garbotoxin.
Yep, so on both sides, you can't Tapu Lele. You can't do any of the other abilities that your deck might be built around.
Alright, so now we've got Wimpod here. Who has the ability to Wimp Out. During your first turn, this Pokemon has no retreat cost.
Okay, when they reprinted it in, I want to say it's Pokemon Go, they gave it a very similar ability, but it was, if your opponent's active Pokemon is a Pokemon V, this Pokemon has no retreat cost.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Alright, and then the Golisopod GX that goes with that. Let's see, it's got 2 attacks and then a GX. So we've got First Impression, does 30 plus. If this Pokemon was on the bench and became your active Pokemon this turn, this attack does 90 more damage.
So 90 plus 30
is 120.
120, okay. Is Shaman, we haven't seen a Shaman yet. Is Shaman still around here, Kyle? Probably not. I'm going to guess not. We definitely saw it back in 2016.
Yeah, since we haven't seen it at all yet. We've gone through 2 full decks.
And I'm trying to think if I saw any in the 2017 tournament. I don't think I did. But it's hard to remember now.
So then we've got Armor Press, does 100 damage. During your opponent's next turn, this Pokemon takes 20 less damage from attacks. Okay, and that's...
How much? Okay. Sorry, what does it do? 100?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then its GX attack is Crossing Cut GX.
Shaman is legal, but less prominent, since Golisopod dominates.
Okay. Crossing Cut GX is 150 damage. Switch this Pokemon with one of your benched Pokemon. Okay.
And it makes sense, so if you Guzma switch a Golisopod into the active spot, now you're doing 120 and you're taking 2 prizes on a 110 HP Shaman. So, yeah. Alright, cool.
Awesome.
And importantly, as we noted, the energy, this only costs one grass energy, and then you can use 1 grass and a double colorless to get access to all of those attacks.
Yeah.
You can also do Gnaw for 30 damage.
It's true.
Gnaw. So only during your first turn, this Pokemon has no retreat
during
cost?
your first turn, this Pokemon has no retreat cost. So if you start with this card and it's the only card that you have, and you draw something else that you would prefer to have here while you're waiting to get Golisopod GX, you can switch for free.
It's not like you have any during your first turn. You still can't... I guess you can attack if you're going second. So I guess the ideal would be to start with Tapu Koko. and a double colorless because you can attack turn 1.
Right.
What does Tapu Koko's retreat cost? Free.
Free.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Cool. Cool. That is a fun one. I look forward to trying that out. And again, I think the boys, my brothers, will like that one as well. They'll also, I think, like Greninja Break just because Golisopod and Greninja are cool Pokemon.
Yeah.
Giant death water beetle. Water beetle of death!
Oh boy. Alright.
Wimpout is very good for retreating into Tapu Koko or another Pokemon. Golisopod needs to be evolved and then moved. Yep.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, it just...
It's just an odd, like...
I was expecting it to be something
only on
like...
your first turn you can do this.
I was expecting it to be like the Levitate Dynamo, like as long as this Pokemon has any energy attached, it has no retreat cost.
Oh, I didn't even check. Is that the right one? No.
No.
Wait, hold on. Sorry, I was just like going down the line. I saw that. Which one's that? Lysidor. Yeah, I see it.
Alright, so next we will look at the Gardevoir deck from this era, because Gardevoir is always good. This is what I'm learning. Gardevoir is always good. If you see a Gardevoir, buy it, because it was probably good. Gardevoir is always good.
Okay.
So in addition to people liking Gardevoir for, let's say, a variety of reasons, the people who designed the Pokemon cards also seem to like Gardevoir a lot, because Gardevoir is always good. And this will be fun because, really, like, fairy types did not get very much time in the sun, and this deck is fairy type based. It says fairy and fighting, though, so I'm curious to see what the fighting side of it is. We'll find out.
Yes.
Right,
that one was a
little jacked up. It is funny to see the state of some of these things, considering the fact that they are sealed.
Right?
Ooh, Diancie. You don't need one of these pins, do you, Kyle?
Ooh.
Ooh, what?
It won't come out.
Ooh. Gallade. Guardy Gallade. Oh, I guess we read that when we were looking in the booklet at the Juniors Champion. Had a similar deck. Okay, and notice that this Gallade only uses colorless.
Right.
I don't know if it's really intended to be an attacker, but it has a cool ability too. So we'll get there. We'll get there. Okay.
Okay.
Of course, not a problem. I figured you already have that. Oh, this also has Abyssal Hand Octillery? Well, again, it's kind of like Vivero.
Yeah.
It's definitely not there to attack. Ooh, rare candy.
Mm-hmm. It's because Gardevoir is stage 2.
Ooh, a special fairy energy?
Wonder energy.
Wonder energy. I think we have some copies of that.
Do we? Okay. Alright, so there's that. I'll work on these, and then we'll kind of switch.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, so let's start with Wonder Energy. This card can only be attached to fairy Pokemon. That's something that is very important to pay attention to if you're playing with special energy across the span, if you're playing in a bunch of different formats and with a bunch of different cards. Some of them can be attached to any Pokemon, but just don't have a special effect if they're attached to the wrong type. But some of them, like Wonder Energy, cannot even be attached to a Pokemon of the wrong type.
Right.
And if, for example, you had Wonder Energy attached to Kirlia, and then you evolved it into a fighting type Gallade, you would have to discard.
Yeah.
You'd have to discard the Wonder Energy.
Yep.
This card provides fairy energy only while this card is attached to a fairy Pokemon, so that clause means you can't pull it out of your hand or your deck with something that says search for a fairy Pokemon. or fairy energy, because it's not a fairy energy while it's in the deck. Prevent all effects of your opponent's attacks except damage done to the fairy Pokemon this card is attached to. Existing effects are not removed. That's interesting. 65% of unique Gardevoir cards were good. That does not surprise me, based on what we've seen. So, I stand on my point. If you see a Gardevoir, buy it, because it was probably good. If this card is attached to anything other than a fairy Pokemon, discard this card. So, right there, we just said that. So, the effect, the special effect of this is similar, most similar to what we recently had in Wash Water Energy, where when it was attached, it prevented effects of attacks. So, extra things like, during your opponent's next turn, you have to flip to attack, or the most common type of effect that we're worried about right now is either automatic KOs, like with Star Requiem, or placing counters. Placing damage counters is an effect. Okay, so Wonder Energy. We've got 4 double colorless. Wonder, 4 double colorless. And then looks like 7 basic fairy energy. The glare is worse right there. So, when we get there.
Yep.
Alright. I can start on the Pokemon.
Okay, cool.
Alright. So, we have Beacon Vulpix.
Yes.
And I was just saying, look, Beacon Vulpix. It is very good, and I don't think there's any evolution.
There's not. I grouped them.
Yeah, okay, great. So Beacon Vulpix is just there because if you get it out turn 1, or if you get it early on, and you can use the Beacon attack, you can start building Pokemon into your hand and then getting your evolution lines set up. So Beacon Vulpix, very good for setup. Alright, we've got Remoraid Octillery. Oh, interesting. 2 Remoraid and only 1 Octillery. Really?
That is interesting. Yeah.
Well, I guess you only need 1, and if there's a Rescue Stretcher in here, you can get it back if you need to. Alright, this Diancie, I don't think I've ever seen this one before. So it's a fairy-type Diancie card. Sparkling Wish, search your deck for a card that evolves from one of your Pokemon, and put it onto that Pokemon to evolve it. Then shuffle your deck. Okay, so that is going to be like a special effect evolution, so that means you could go Ralts, evolve to Kirlia, and then use Sparkling Wish to evolve it up to a Gardevoir GX.
Okay.
Like all in. I mean, the Ralts has to be on the turn on the bench at the beginning of the turn.
Yeah.
But just for example, so I'm pretty sure that's what that's there for. Although Diamond Storm does 30 damage and heal 30 damage from each of your fairy Pokemon. That's cool. That's really cool. Okay, we've got our Tapu Lele. 3 of them. Importantly, Tapu Lele is Psychic type.
Right.
But Energy Drive is not affected by weakness or resistance. So you cannot hit Psychic types for weakness with Tapu Lele. So as good as Energy Drive is, you also can't hit another Tapu Lele. Tapu Lele actually has no weakness. But you couldn't hit a Tapu Lele with another Tapu Lele and knock it out.
Right. There is a Rescue Stretcher in here.
Okay, that makes sense. Alright, now our bread and butter line here, we've got our Ralts. We've got 4 Ralts, 2 Kirlia, that makes sense, because... Oh wait, nope, there's a 3rd Kirlia. Still makes sense. Then we've got 3 Gardevoir GX and 1 Gallade. Okay, so Ralts and Kirlia are nothing to write home about, it looks like. They are really just there to get you up to the stage 2s. Unlike Refinement Kirlia, which in and of itself is super useful. Energy Drive not hitting for weakness was from the Mewtwo Wars with Mewtwo EX. I don't know if we have any copies of the good Mewtwo EX, but it had a similar attack to this called Energy Drive. Or it wasn't called Energy Drive. X-Ball, maybe?
Put that there.
But it did damage for the amount of energy attached, and you could just hit crazy numbers, especially if you were going into another hitting into another Mewtwo EX.
Oh, okay.
I'm blanking on exactly what year that was. I want to say it was around 2012, maybe?
Oh, I saw
Kyle
that.
will correct me. Okay, so Gardevoir GX.
No pressure.
I mean, Kyle knows everything. He literally has an account where he shows off the fact that he knows everything. So Gardevoir GX is a fairy type, which I don't know if there were any really good dragon type Pokemon at this time, but eventually, I think most dragon type cards at this time were weak to fairy. X-Ball and 2012. Both were. Yes. Every World's 2012 deck has Mewtwo in it. Well, we'll have to look for some 2012
decks.
because I do like Mewtwo
Yes.
as a Pokemon, which is why I cannot stop playing. Mewtwo v Union is a ton of fun, and I will probably never take that deck apart. Reversal Guardy. Okay, so Gardevoir GX, Fairy type, ability, Secret Spring. Once during your turn, before your attack, you may attach a Fairy Energy card from your hand to one of your Pokemon. Okay, so right there it has an ability that I don't recommend building that here. Alright, well I won't try to build it, but I might buy the World Champ
Might
decks.
just get the Champ decks.
Eventually I would love to own, and I'm totally fine with them being the World Champ versions, I would love to own a copy of every single World Champ deck.
Right.
Obviously some of the really old ones are hard to find and expensive, so
yeah,
we'll see. But I'm excited that I think we have now 4 separate years that we have complete sets for. Yeah. 2022, 2019, 2016, 2017.
Right.
So yeah. Alright, so Secret Spring is energy acceleration, and that synchronizes with Infinite Force, which is the name of the deck.
Right.
The last one was called Golisopod because it was Golisopod and Garbodor. So Infinite Force, this attack does 30 damage times the amount of energy attached to both active Pokemon. Both active
Pokemon combined. That's nice. That's always fun.
Yeah.
Because if your opponent, for some reason, doesn't know your cards, and they just la-di-da-di-da, keep attaching energy.
Yeah. Or if they need a lot of energy.
Or if they have
or
to
if
have
it's
a lot of
Gardevoir
energy.
GX versus Gardevoir GX.
Yeah.
Haha, nice. Man, I get tempted very easily.
Very easily.
Very easily. I have to stop myself. But yeah, eBay is a very dangerous place.
So dangerous.
But occasionally they have good ones. Like we got these from TCG Player, and I was pretty pleased with the fact that they were there. The sets were actually from the same sellers.
Right.
And we got 3 of the 2017 ones, and then we had to find the last one at.
But we found it at
NAIC, thankfully.
Yeah.
Okay, so 30 times the amount of energy, and then Twilight GX, shuffle 10 cards from your discard pile into your deck. That lets you burn through items and then use this and avoid Trash Lunch.
Nice.
I'm gonna chase the 2010 World's printed decks for collecting purposes.
Yeah.
Nice. So, Gardevoir GX. Decent HP, decent damage. Okay. Gallade. 150 HP, single prizer. Mm-hmm. Obviously, GXs are 2 prizers.
Right.
Sensitive Blade, 60 plus. If you played a supporter card from your hand during this turn, this attack does 70 more damage for a total of 130.
That's respectable.
Yeah, that's a big number. 130 because, again, you can one-shot Shaman. And then Premonition. Once during your turn, before your attack, you may look at the top 5 cards of your deck and put them back on top of your deck in any order.
Ooh, that's nice.
And Kyle was pointing out that that's really useful to use in combination with Abyssal Hand, because Abyssal Hand is draw until you have 5, so if you know I'm going to draw the next 3 cards, you get to decide of the top 5 which 3 they are.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And then I don't know if there's any significant colorless Pokemon, but obviously Gallade is fighting, and that usually hits colorless for weakness.
Right.
So let's see. We've got our N, Sycamore, Hexmaniac, Guzma, Bridget, Acerola,
Yeah.
we've been over all those. Ultra Ball, Versa Seeker. Oh, interesting. Super Rod and Rescue Stretcher.
One each.
One each. Super Rod has the exact same effect as the new print does now. Field Blower, Choice Band, we know. Rare Candy. All right, go ahead and read that. I don't know if this is not broken Rare Candy.
Yeah. Choose one of your basic Pokemon in play. If you have a Stage 2 card in your hand that evolves from that Pokemon, put that card onto the basic Pokemon to evolve it. You can't use this card during your first turn or on a basic Pokemon that was put into play this turn.
Right.
Yeah.
So those restrictions plus not having the option of evolving to a stage 1 with Rare Candy are some of the things that have changed over the years.
Right.
Okay, Drampa GX, and I definitely battled some Drampa. Drampa Garb was a popular deck. So Drampa GX, it was colorless, weak to fighting, so Gallade would have been useful there. And he's pointing out that Gallade's just a really strong. I mean, 130. That's a big damage
from a one prize
from
Pokemon.
a single prizer. Yeah, at this time, it's big. All right.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, one more deck, and then it is bedtime.
Yes.
Boys and girls. And this deck is grass, and we're going to use our brand new. So technically, we have. Let's see. Technically, we have 7 different sleeve colors, but we only have 4 we have 4 major ones that we've used historically as far as Dragon Shield sleeves go. And that's Purple Classic, Purple Matte, which those two are very hard to tell apart.
Yes.
And we're not buying any more Purple Classics, but we have some.
We didn't completely realize.
Yeah, that was the very first sleeves we ever bought. And I do like the way that they look, but apparently they're too reflective for legal play. And when we bought the matte, this is what I didn't realize. When I bought the mattes, I didn't realize they weren't the same as the classics, which we already had.
Right.
But I do like the way the mattes look, and they are nice and opaque. The classics are also nice and opaque. Unlike Sapphire.
Yeah.
What?
You didn't hand me the deck.
Hand you the deck so you can start opening it. Sorry, I wasn't.
Takes a minute. It's okay.
I'm really slow, okay?
You're tired.
I am tired.
You slept like 3.5 hours last night.
But we have Sapphire, Blue, Purple Matte, Purple Classic. We have these off-brand red sleeves that we use for some decks. They do decently well. They are definitely transparent, so you could not use mixed decks with them. And then we have the really cheap black sleeves that we like to use for our retro decks, or we've also put our GLC decks in there because it's good for, they're just easy to buy a whole bunch of, and then we can easily move cards back and forth between
in and
decks.
out without worrying about damaging expensive sleeves.
Yeah, so for the classic cards Coliseum, we've got them all in these. I mean, I think they're solid black sleeves. You know, Kyle,
you started using them some.
For proxies, but they get the job done. We don't
have to worry about our siblings or Timothy ruining them by being too rough on them accidentally. Yep. We'd be like, we paid too much for those to damage them.
The sleeves themselves.
Yeah.
And then we definitely anticipate in the long term using those sleeves more. So anyway, all that to say, we finally went ahead and decided we were going to get a 4th main color of Dragon Shield sleeves. So we got these emerald ones.
Yes.
So this will be our first time ever using them.
Yes.
Did you even open them?
No, I haven't actually opened them yet. I wanted to do that together.
Let's see. Ooh, I like it.
I told you they would be fun and sparkly.
Well, yeah, that's the matte. And yeah, I think it matches this little thing here on the bottom. And I think this color will go really well with this deck, which is grass. So great. I am super excited about that. So, Emerald, our newest color. And probably that's all. We just, just get a few colors and then buy the same colors. Unless you have some real, specific system you want to use. But it just makes it easier that if you break a sleeve, you can go and find more of that sleeve
more of
pretty
that
easily.
color really easily, yeah.
Okay, so we've got our Professor Sycamore. We've got Acerola, Bridget, 2 Guzma,
It's upside down.
and 3 N. So very typical trainer cards that we've seen. 3 double colorless. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Only 5 basic grass energy. So again, we'll be interested to see either the attacks must not cost very much. Oh, there's Golisopod in this one too? Huh.
Hello.
That's interesting. I want to say Decidueye has an ability very similar to quick shooting, but we'll see.
Yes, we will find out.
So 5 basic grass, 3 double colorless, 3 choice band, 2 revitalizer. Okay, so this is a card that I did not even know existed until I was building grass GLC. But it lets you put any 2 grass Pokemon from your discard pile directly into your hand.
Oh.
So that's really nice. It's better than Rescue Carrier. You know, for grass
grass specific, yeah.
So, yeah, Revitalize. Of course, you can't shuffle 3 back in, like you don't have that option. But as far as the effect of putting a Pokemon directly into your hand. Alright, 2 Field Blower, 2 Float Stone. Alright, this super cool stadium that I think ended up getting banned even in Standard. Did it get banned in Standard, or just banned in Expanded? You'll have to tell me, Kyle. Well, it was legal. It was obviously legal for 2016 Worlds and legal for 2017 Worlds, so I'm guessing they'll just not print it again. Although we did have distorted time-space. But anyway, Forest of Giant Plants lets any grass Pokemon evolve even during the first turn that it's in play. So again, in theory, banned and expanded. This was its last... Yeah. I figured it would not... I don't think hardly any cards, unless they get reprinted again, last 2 Worlds cycles. Like you go to Worlds twice and then you rotate. That's usually how it works.
And we're done.
I'm sure that there have been exceptions to that, but in general. Okay, so Forest of Giant Plants. So the cool thing about that is you could, in theory, if you had all 3, you could go Rowlet, Dartrix, Decidueye GX all in one turn.
Right.
And we saw that with the Yanmega Break deck from 2016.
Yeah.
So, Forest of Giant Plants. Sorry, I should start putting things over here. That's definitely a unique card in this deck. And then we've got 4 Ultra Ball, Shocker, and 3 Versus Seeker. That's kind of interesting. It's always interesting to see exactly the counts that they end up on, and I know that, like, Versus Seeker is an exception, because, it was reprinted as a secret rare. That's so interesting, that extended its legality. Obviously, Versus Seeker is super powerful. Also a staple in GLC because of how powerful it is. But it's always interesting to see the counts that people end up on and think about, would I have done the same thing?
Right.
But I also know, and Kyle has talked about this, that like people today, looking back at past formats and building decks in that format, don't necessarily settle on the same counts and the same exact builds that were settled on at the time.
Right.
So I know that you've talked about that with 2010, like doing modern builds of 2010 rather than preferring the 2010 builds of 2010.
Right.
Part of that's because the information is so much more accessible now.
Right.
Thank you for your help, dear.
Yeah, of course.
I like these a lot.
I know, me too. They're
and
really
I think
nice.
They look really good. So I'm glad we've got 3 boxes of them before we even knew what they looked like.
Well, we were pretty sure what they looked like.
We were pretty sure it would be okay. Alright, so we've got three Rowlet. Okay, yeah, 3. Okay. Alright, so we've got 3 Rowlet. Yep, which is nothing really to write home about. 60 HP, 1 retreat cost. 3 Dartrix, also probably not intended to be an attacker at all. But Sharp Blade Quill does 20 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon, so that's always nice to be able to hit the bench if you need to. Move that down.
Here, I can move. I got lots of room over here.
Sure. Let me move the blower closer to you, and I'll pop Revitalizer over there.
Yeah, great.
Alright, and then we got Decidueye GX. 240 HP, Stage 2. Feather Arrow. Once during your turn, before your attack, you may put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. Okay, so it is exactly the same as Quick Shooting Inteleon. Or I should say, Quick Shooting Inteleon has the same ability as Feather Arrow here. Razor Leaf, 90 damage. I'm guessing that you didn't really want Decidueye in the active spot. Is that
his only other attack?
Well, hang on. It's got a GX attack. And I think Hollow Hunt GX is a good attack, but I'm guessing you did not want to use Razor Leaf. Yeah. I mean, definitely. Anytime you can attack any of your opponent's Pokemon without having to have access to Gust.
Yeah.
And like Kyle's pointing out there, you can use Feather Arrow. If you've got 2 Feather Arrow in play, and then a Sharp Blade Quill, that's 60 damage to any of your opponent's Pokemon, which can definitely get you a knockout. And then Hollow Hunt GX is put any 3 cards from your discard pile into your hand. And even if they end you after that, those cards are back in the deck.
Right.
Which there's nothing that lets you just put any... There are very few things that let you put any card from your discard pile back into your deck. Okay, so there's Decidueye. It's there for its snipingness. Okay. Espeon EX. Miraculous Shine. Devolve each of your opponent's evolved Pokemon and put the highest stage evolution card on it into your opponent's hand. Okay, so I know what this is for. And I've run into something similar to this when I played in Somewhat. There was a Dialga that had an attack called Rewind Time. So this is a basic. First of all, Espeon GX is a basic. That attack, Miraculous Shine, only costs 1 colorless. So where this is an advantage is you use Feather Arrow to put enough damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon so that the stage under it will be knocked out, and then you use Miraculous Shine to devolve it, and it gets knocked out. So now they've got the highest stage in their hand,
right?
And the one on the bench is gone, or the one in play is gone.
Is
because it's knocked out. So then they have it in their hand.
Okay, that makes sense. So I was reading that when I was sleeping, and I was like, there's got to be a really good explanation for this, because on service level it sounds dumb.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes so much more sense.
So that is what that is for.
Sneaky. What that
Sudowoodo, same Sudowoodo as before. 2 flying Tapu Koko. Again, this is more of a spread. This is even more of a spread. This deck leans into the spread.
Yeah.
Because you've got the Feather Arrow there.
Yeah.
2 Tapu Lele. Just always Tapu Lele. And then 3 Wimpod. And 3 Golisopod GX.
Mm-hmm.
So same attacker as Golisador. So you can see where Ability Lock with Feather Arrow and Wonder Tag is very useful. So that's why people are still playing Garbotoxin and things.
Right.
But we definitely didn't see it in all of these decks here.
Right. Yeah.
Wow. Those are really fun.
That's
I'm
fun,
excited
yeah.
to learn to play with these
Yeah.
as we mess around with them some. But yes, I see where Espeon EX fits in there. And that is all 4 of the 2017 World Championship decks.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
It
Those are
was.
fun cards. And again, I'm excited to have the set complete
Yes.
and to be able to
We need to make a label for that.
yes, we need to make a label. And then to be able to sit and play games within, and you could play 2016 versus 2017. Play 2017 versus 2018 if you want. Although we only have one 2018
I
deck
think
right
so.
now. Yeah, we just have that Buzz Rock over there that we
Yeah.
haven't opened yet.
Yeah.
We got that at NAIC too.
Yes, we did.
I don't think we'll end up waiting until we have the full set because I need to stop spending money for a while. NAIC was kind of like NAIC plus anniversary trip together, so that was fun. But we, yeah, this will be fun, but not tonight because I've been awake since 1:30 last night, thanks to our 14-month-old. So we're going to go ahead and sign off here.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. Kyle, thank you as always for your knowledge and attendance. We appreciate your company, and it's always fun to be able to ask you questions. So we're going to go ahead and sign off. As always, play